Well, it's not just non-Catholics who've been protesting against the lavish arrangements for the papal visit. Just before we came on air, I spoke to Cristiana Ruiz. She's a member of Redes Cristianos. That's a Christian network in Madrid made up of priests and other Catholics. They're opposed to the papal visit, so I asked her why.
We are not against the Pope. We are not against Catholic young people coming here. What we are criticizing is the way they are financing this visit. Part of it is paid by church and by people coming, but another big part is paid by big enterprises, which we think don't represent the values, are far from what Jesus said, that we need simple life and near from the poor.
But also you need to celebrate your faith, don't you? And you can't have a celebration without spending money.
I think I can celebrate my faith without spending money, in fact.
But I suppose what I meant is that having a party for the Pope, that's not necessarily anti-spiritual, is it? Or indeed opposed to the gospel?
No, not at all. Having a party is not anti-spiritual at all. But if it would be with less luxury, we can live our faith as Christians simpler. It's true that you need to spend money in security and food, accommodation. But when people, for example, welcomes in their homes or in their parishes, you don't need to spend money in these accommodations, for example.
Which are the companies that you think should not be associated with the papal visit, the companies that have sponsored it, in effect?
Mm-hmm. Most of them are big companies like El Corte Inglés.
The big department store company.
Yeah, and it's continuously showing us a consumerism life. And also, for example, Banco Santander Bank. Some reports that NGOs said recently they are financing weapon fabrication in different parts of the world and also flotation, which are not ecologically sustainable.
How relevant is the Pope and Catholicism to young Spaniards these days?
For the most conservative Catholic ones, it's important for sure. Even for those like me, we are Catholic, I respect him. Some things that he say, I agree, but many things I don't. I don't feel represented by many things that he say.
What do you think the Pope himself feels about the amount of money, about the companies, the banks and so on with which his visit is associated? Do you think he's comfortable with that?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he is conscious of it, in fact, or if living in such far from the real life makes him, bishops and cardinals, losing the perspective of what it is right and what it is too much. It's a really interesting question, and we should ask him. For example, seeing John Paul II relic involved in a golden book, for me it's not current at all with my faith. But there are many problems as well as the golden things.
So one of those concerned about the lavishness of the papal visit to Spain. That was Cristina Ruiz from Redes Cristianos. You're listening to World Update from the BBC. When I grow up to be a man, will I dig the same things that turned me on as a kid? The Beach Boys, 1965, When I Grow Up. Well, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's one of the first questions we will ask young children. In the UK today, a number of celebrities are dressing up as the profession that they wanted to be when they were youngsters. It's a fundraising initiative by Save the Children. It seems the answer to that question has changed over the past couple of decades. Firefighter, doctor, astronaut, no longer apparently. Child psychologist Laverne Antrobus has been looking into this. What do they want to be, Laverne, these days?
Well, I think that young children these days want to be celebrities. You know, they want to be the people they see on the television, the people they hear about in the media.
But do they want to be celebrities just because they are celebrities? I mean, astronauts are celebrities after all.
Well, I think what's happened is, you know, in the past, looking for role models, usually children look to their parents for, whatever they were doing and thought with them about what they might become in the future. But I think nowadays children are so bombarded by the images on television that they're attracted to the glitz and glitter and the glamorous lifestyles that they see these people having. And, it breaks celebrity down. Of course, they want to be footballers, they want to be singers, they want to be models. So they want to be the people that they see on the television.
And when you were 5, Laverne, did you say, Mummy, I want to be a child psychologist?
I don't think... I've been thinking about this. I don't think... I can't remember what I said, but I think what I wanted to do, I wanted to be somebody who was involved in supporting other people, looking after. And I think actually that's what happens when you ask very young children what they want to be. They're very much playing at being doctors and nurses or teachers or looking after. And I think that's where we're seeing the gradual shift, that those more traditional jobs and roles that people may have really aspired to in the past have now been replaced by this more glamorous lifestyle that brings you things.
And can you tell something about children from the answers they give?
I think what you can tell is where their minds are at. And I think that perhaps these new choices are telling us that children's aspirations have changed. In some ways, children still have these fantastic imaginations and they want to take their place in the world in the most fantastic way they can. But I think they're also getting very drawn into wanting something that, comes back to them, that admires them for just being, rather than that very different sense that I think children had a long time ago where, it's not quite altruistic really, or vocational. They wanted to be good citizens. They wanted to give something back.
And now they just want to be rich and famous?
I think that there is a feeling amongst some children that that's where you want to find yourself. And I'm not sure that stays, because actually I think that as you grow up and as your parents talk to you, as you become more involved with school life and teachers are helping you realise where your talents are, my hope is that that's where children really begin to make the decisions, the life decisions that are going to be the most important ones for them. And that actually this attraction to the glamour and the celebrity lifestyle is something that if we all work really, really hard, we can help children see perhaps isn't the right move for them.
Well, Laverne, thanks very much indeed. And we've been putting this already up on our Facebook page, BBC World Service, and lots of interesting answers. Alain Provence says, I wanted to be a paleontologist first, then an astronaut. Instead, I've wound up in the army. I'm going to be a teacher when my tour is done. Holly Esch says, this will sound strange, but my first ambition when I was little was to become a cucumber. You have to read Holly's post to make sense of that. It's not quite as daft as it sounds. Well, that's the sound of Hurricane Irene has just battered the Bahamas. It's causing property damage, it's knocking down trees, passing over the island chain with winds of almost 200 kilometres per hour, quickly approaching the east coast of the US. I've been speaking to Todd Kimberlin. He's with the National Hurricane Center in Miami. Just before we came on air, he gave me an update.
Irene is a Category 3 hurricane. That makes it a major hurricane, and it's not too far from Nassau. In fact, as of 5 a.m., it's 80 miles east-southeast of Nassau in the Bahamas, or about 735 miles south of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina. The hurricane is packing winds of 115 miles per hour and is moving on a northwestward course at about 12 miles per hour. I think the hurricane is going to continue on this northwestward track through the northwestern Bahamas today and pass the Florida East Coast throughout the day and reach the northwestern Bahamas by tonight.
And the surge, the sea surge?
Well, in the Bahamas, we can expect a maximum storm surge of 7 to 11 feet above normal tide levels near the center, near and to the right of the center, and the surge will be accompanied by large and battering waves on top of that.
Can you say which part of the east coast of the U.S. might be affected?
It's still a little too early to say precisely what areas are going to be affected. We do, as of 5 a.m., have a hurricane watch in effect for a portion of the southeast and central U.S. East Coast that roughly stretches from around South Carolina up through the North Carolina-Virginia border. That watch was put in effect because there's the expectation that hurricane conditions are possible for over a portion of this area within 48 hours. So our forecast track takes the center very close to the Outer Banks about 2 to 3 days from now, and then very close to the Mid-Atlantic and New England shortly thereafter. We can't say precisely whether it will be onshore or offshore, but it's going to be close enough to warrant these watches and eventually probably warnings.
Todd Kimberlin from the National Hurricane Center in Miami.